Welcome back. I am joined here today by, I called up Matchroom and I asked them to send me the most emerging talent, the heavyweight that everybody's talking about from the Dillian Whyte stable. And they sent me Fabio Wardley instead of Alan Babbage. How are you, Fabio?
I'm good, mate. How's things with you?
Yeah,
all right?
Very well, mate. Very well, thank you. Of course, I am joking. I am very much privileged to be joined by the English heavyweight champion, the newly crowned English heavyweight champion, Mr. Fabio Wardley. We've kind of mentioned this off camera. I mean, we've spoken quite a lot throughout our time of kind of knowing each other, but we've never really done a proper interview. It's usually kind of fight week stuff. How's your camp been?
The formality of how's this? You done all right? Have you trained hard? Yeah, all of the same old.
Exactly. Are you going to win this weekend? Well, I hope so. Yeah. So,
I hope. Well, fingers crossed.
So it's one of those. So today we've got you in, and I'm very, very excited to learn more about you because you are. I mean, I just had this conversation with Ade, who's co-hosted the podcast today. You are still somewhat of an unknown quantity. People know that you have a background in kind of white collar boxing, but they don't really know the story of Fabio Wardley, how you came from where you were before then to there to obviously now English heavyweight champion, looking to take on all comers for the British title sometime soon. So yeah, that's basically what we're doing here today. So take me right the way back. Fabio Wardley.
Where do we start? So I guess, how long ago is it now? So maybe 6 years ago now was the first time I ever really definitely the first time I ever stepped foot into a boxing gym. Every time I ever laced up a pair of gloves. First time I ever just did any kind of pure boxing session, and it just went from there. Really, it was an incremental thing because I'll be the first to say I wasn't one of those kids that grew up and boxing was my be all and end all and that was my life from as soon as I could walk. That's what I wanted to do, and it wasn't. It was a gradual thing that the love for it and the enjoyment of the sport and everything kind of took hold of me as it kind of progressed and more and then built, and then it has got to the point now where it is my life, it is me, it's everything I want and everything I want to do. So yeah, I started out early on in white collar. That was just the gym I was at. It wasn't really a choice. It wasn't I don't want to do ABA. It was just that's what was available to me because I'm from Ipswich and there wasn't too much going on there in terms of boxing. We're not lucky to have Neasden and Peacock and all them nice big ABA clubs that you can go to and do all that with. So I just took what was in front of me really and ran with it from there, and it worked out pretty well in the end, and we had a few white collar fights and ended up a few years later somehow achieving myself a little belt.
Well, I think you did slightly more than that to get that, but we'll come on to that in a bit. You make a good point about being from Ipswich. I'm from kind of I'm not, but my family from the rival neck of the woods in Norwich. So we'll try and keep the beef to one side.
Yeah.
Just for today.
We'll set it aside. Yeah. It's like Crips and Bloods, but we'll piece up today. We'll piece up.
What was it like growing up in Ipswich?
Good, cool. So it's funny because if you ask me where I grew up in Ipswich, the place I grew up is a place called Chantry, and that's known as the rough part of Ipswich. But then if you compare that to London and places like that, it's not really. But for Ipswich and for what it was, that was the rough place. That was the place where the bad things happen, kids are getting in trouble and stuff's going wrong for everyone. But that was where I grew up, and it wasn't really it's one of those things that you never notice that there's an issue with your environment because you're in it, because it's just normal day to day with you. You're just going about and yeah, that happens, there's a fight there and these kids are doing that and they're robbing that and whatever, but you're just going through it. So it wasn't, I never had a bad upbringing at all. If I look back, I don't have any issues with it. There was nothing bad at all. It was just not kind of your ideal silver spoon, but I got through and did all right. So it was good. I've got nothing bad to say about Ipswich at all. I'm thankful for all that it's given me and the support that the town has for me as well.
Get into any trouble yourself when you were a young kid?
Yeah, that was funnily enough, that's the story of how me and my coach first ever met. So I was quite a, what's the word? We'll just say I was quite a naughty kid in school and stuff, and I was on a program where they wouldn't put me in the classes, but I'd do these extracurricular things with this special kind of out of school organisation that looked after kind of naughty kids and trying to keep them engaged and interested and stuff. And my current boxing coach was kind of like the head or part of that program. So that's how I knew him from the start, was that he knew me from when I was like a young kid that was getting sent to these programs and stuff for being a naughty kid, and they'd take us and do things and kind of sit us down and have talks with us and just try and like edge us into the right way, right path. So that was kind of how we first met and things, and it went from there that after doing that program, and I grew up and matured and whatever, I kind of grew out of that little phase and got onto a better path, that I contacted him later in life and said, like, where are you? What's going on? What are you doing? I know you've always been involved in boxing. I was interested in trying it. What gym you at? Where are you? Can I just come jump in and just see how I feel about it? And he just said, yeah, come up. And that was how it all went, really, was that I just messaged him randomly out of nowhere and said, look, I hope you've been good, but just want to come try some boxing. I was like, where's the gym? Is it all right if I come up? He said, yeah, get involved. And been me and him ever since.
So what impetus, what inspired you to do that? Like, I'm always kind of interested to see whether the fighter's 6 years old, 16 years old, or even later, what kind of says, okay, I really want to go and box now. I really want to go into that gym and have a fight or whatever. What was it with you?
I've always massively enjoyed pushing like the competition aspect of me versus me, and then me versus someone else. How far can I push myself, and then how far can I challenge myself against that person in front of you? And it's almost quite an arrogant thing, in the sense that I want to beat you. Like, I want to show that I can run further than you, or I can do more rounds than you, or I can skip for longer than you. I want to show you, and I want to let you know, and I'll skip right next to you, and I'll look at you when you're flagging on like 20 minutes in, and I'm still going strong, and I'll egg you on. And that's that kind of little bit of arrogant side to me that's there, that I want that competition. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of times where I don't always come out on top, but I always enjoy the process of just challenging myself and pushing myself. And I think that's where I looked at boxing, and it was because I came from doing like football and bits of rugby and little bits of team sports and stuff, where if it goes wrong or if you lose or whatever, there's somewhere else to push the blame. Like, you can go, oh yeah, well, you didn't do your bit, and oh yeah, well, you didn't do your bit. Whereas in boxing and stuff, it was all me. And then kind of coming back around to that glory thing as well, is that if you win, it's all me as well. It's not, I don't have to share that with you. It's mine. Like, I won, I did the work, I did this, I did that, and now all the praise is mine. Again, with like team sports and stuff, you have to share that. Like, you win a game, you win a cup, whatever. Yeah, we all played our part. So I think that's where it came from in me, that there's something in me that wants it all for myself, kind of thing. I wanna show that I can do it on my own too, and without anyone, and do it on my own, which is half true and half not, because obviously there's a team, there's coaches and stuff, but ultimately the nitty gritty of it is just me. So I think that's where I kind of really was drawn to boxing, because it was just, look, you're in that ring on your own now. Let's see what you've got, see what you can do.
Yeah, it's not something that is uncommon to hear from people. It's kind of like, there's always negative connotations that go along with the word ego, but it's something like that. It's something similar. It doesn't necessarily need to be a bad thing. I feel personally that, you know, a lot of the elite level fighters have that edge to them. They have that ego to them. What did your parents think, or what did your family think about you going into boxing? Because I mean, obviously, I didn't know you when you were a young tearaway, terrorizing the streets of Ipswich. But you sit here before me. You're an articulate. You're polite, pleasant. You're not bad on the eye, as Mr. Hearn said. No comment from me, but that's what Eddie said. But it seems to me, at least, that you potentially could have taken your life in a lot of different directions that wouldn't have involved necessarily being punched in the head for a living. So, what were your family's thoughts on it?
I think that's a massive plus for me, is that my family, no matter what I've done, have always been very supportive. Like, from the point where I went to high school, went to a sixth form for a bit. I was probably in sixth form for about a month, and I came home and I said, look, Mum, I'm dropping out. I'm not doing it anymore. Like, that's not for me. And my mum didn't react in like, oh my God, you're an idiot, you're stupid, you need to do this, you blah, 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 you've got to do that. She was like, okay, that's fine, but just so you know, you're not doing nothing. He was like, you can drop that, and if you say that's not for you, that's okay, but you're not just bumming around. You're not just sitting around the house. You're not waiting for the opportunity. So you can drop out, that's fine, but you're going to go a different route. You're going to go get a job. You're going to go do this, but you're doing something. And I think that's where my family have always been very supportive of me, in the sense that they know that as long as I make the decision, I'm going to follow through with it. Like if I say, this is what I'm doing now, they know that as long as they back me and they're with me, that it's cool, that everything's looked after. I will follow through with that. I'm not flaky. I don't put myself into things that I don't actually want to do. I don't like start something for a week and then go, oh, you know what, this isn't for me. Like I'm not doing it. So my family have always been very like supportive, and like I say, my mum and my stepdad and stuff, they were always, as soon as I did it, they were 100% behind me. They were always at the white collar shows. They always wanted to help me out with bits where I could, and training and sparring and whatever they could, kind of just anything they could do to give me them little nudges. They were always there for me. So I think I was quite lucky to have that support base that, again, gives you that added confidence, so that when the time did come that I decided to quit a full-time job of working in London, like 40 plus hours a week, a good job as well. I was earning good money, and I could have quite happily stayed in that job and lived quite a normal kind of life of office life, and it wouldn't have been bad for me at all. But when I made that decision to go, right, I'm quitting that, I'm going to go work part-time in a gym on minimum wage and completely like go to the other end of the spectrum in terms of like money and things, they were like, that's fine, there's no worries, but we're here with you. Like we can support you and we can help you get through. And I think that's something that's always made me very kind of fortunate, in the sense that I've had that backing behind me, that I've always felt that little bit of extra confidence to be like, no, I can do this because they're with me and everyone's with me and everyone's supporting me. So they've always been the most supportive, and I'm lucky to have them around, to be fair.
What job did you leave?
I was a recruitment consultant for the health and social care sector. I worked literally just off Liverpool Street Station. Literally come off, take a left, and my office was 20 yards down the road. So, yeah, that was a fun commute for Ipswich to London for the few months that I did that. And then they got us an office in Ipswich, so I didn't have to do it so much. But I was still back and forth to London a lot. And yeah, I was doing that up until I had my debut. So I had my first fight. And that was when after that, I realised that I can't do both. You just can't, I was running around sparring different people and speaking to them and trying to, when they sparred. The first problem I came up was, I worked I worked 9 to 5, but I was up at 7 in the morning, didn't get back in Ipswich till about 7 p.m. So, first of all, trying to find sparring was a nightmare because pros only spar during the day, Monday to Friday, really. So I was brilliant. So that's that out the window near on. I had lucky to find some people that were sparring on weekends and stuff, so I could go and do that. And then training as well. I need to get a session in the morning. Okay, so that's me getting up at 5, 6 almost, banging out a session, getting home, eating, getting on the train, going to London. Then I get home. It's 7. I've still got to get another session in somewhere. So then I'm getting home, I'm getting changed quickly, grabbing my bag, shooting to the gym, rushing a session because I need to get home, get to bed because I've got to be up again at 5 a.m. And I did that for I don't know, 8 weeks or so when I was in the middle of this fight for the camp. And I got to the end and I was I need to, this is it. Are you in? Or I had a conversation with myself for are you in, are you out? Are we doing this or are we not? Because you can't do it by halves. You can't just train a little bit and think you're going to go far, or you can't do your full-time job and think as boxing on the side. Either if you want to do this, then you do it properly, or you don't do it at all. And that was the conversation I had with myself. And then I decided that after that, I said to my job, look, I'm gonna quit this and I'm gonna be a pro boxer. And they were like, oh, okay, okay, see you later, mate. And then I quit my full-time job. I went to work part-time in a gym, and just went from there, really.
Yeah, it's something that obviously we hear quite a lot from fighters. I mean, I remember when I was kind of growing up, probably slightly older than that, we were in Rendell Monroe when he used to work the bins and stuff, and it was used as a selling point for him. But it is kind of the minority of fighters who are able to kind of do that and still be able to compete. The dangers of the sport as well means that it's not something that you can go half-assed into. Talk to us about the white collar scene, because I feel like a lot of people who have not been to a white collar show or not seen it, they kind of look at Snatch and Guy Ritchie and think it's going to be one of those.
Literally.
But what's it like? And specifically your first one, because you can, no matter what, you can do whatever you want in the gym, but the first time that you step into the ring and that white collar, what was that experience like?
It was surreal, really was. I think First off, with white collar, whenever you say white collar, people have this like negative connotation, like you said, like of it being kind of in like a shed or a back garden,
alley,
and just like a couple of rough guys throwing some punches at it, almost like bare knuckle style. And it's not. It's like the shows and stuff. Some of the shows are actually put on and more glamorous than a lot of like ABA shows. Just like, not to say necessarily the quality is as good in terms of like how the boxers are and things, but to just go to them and stuff, I think it'd be a good experience for people to just realise that they're not as kind of bad and dingy as everyone thinks they are. All the shows I fought on were great. They were great shows. They were well set up, evenly matched. They were good fights, and I always had fun on them. Like, I never had any issues with them. Don't get me wrong. Up and down the country, there are some bad shows, and there have been some things gone wrong, and it does need a bit of regulation. I understand that, but it doesn't mean that it's wholly bad as a whole. And I always loved all of those. My first like kind of, well, my first white collar fight was obviously at my hometown in Ipswich, and like it was just so weird, like to do it all, to like get. There was the first time like I'd ever got my hands wrapped properly, and I was like, oh, God, this is like weird. And then like I was warming up before a fight. It was such a weird concept to me that I'm literally going to have a scheduled fight. Like I have planned to fight this person at this time in this day. Like, when you break it down for what it is, it's actually quite a weird thing, which I was like, this is a bit mental. And aside from all of that, I've also invited all of my friends as well, so they can watch me have a fight with this guy in this place. And it's just like, I took a little moment to be like, what actually am I doing? Like, what is this? But then, like, I did it. The ring walk was just great. Like, I don't know if you've never boxed before, if you've never done anything, it's a hard emotion to kind of really explain to someone that how you feel all the way through, because everything in your body is nervous, everything's firing and twitching, and you're like, oh shit, like this is not gonna and then, but you at the same time you're absolutely buzzing as well, because everyone's like saying your name and you're cheering, and the announcer announces your name and everyone roars, and you're like, yeah, come on, like I'm the guy, like I'm the man.
Like building yourself up more than anything.
But at the exact same time, you're like shitting yourself, going, but what if it goes wrong? And no. And then I think a lot of boxers and stuff always say that once the bell goes, you get that like tunnel vision where everything just goes and just disappears, and it's literally just you and the other person. And yeah, and I had my first fight. I won by KO and about 2 minutes into the first round. So, and then that was it as well. That's the moment I always say to people that was the turning point, the 100% moment where I was like, no, I'm in. Like, this is me now, because I'd done a lot of sports and I'd won like cups with football, and I'd just medals and awards and blah blah blah. I'd done stuff, but nothing had ever reached that point. Even though I didn't even win a belt, I just won my first like white collar fight. Nothing had reached that point where I like stood there, my hand was raised, and I looked around, and like, all my friends and family were like clapping and cheering, and everyone was buzzing. And I was like, nah, this is me. Like, this is my thing. Like, there's no way I can get away from this now. Like, I'm in. I know I'm in. So that was my moment where I was like, okay, this is for me.
Even though you've kind of boxed on pay-per-view shows and you've boxed on Sky and stuff like that, in its own way, because that was the first one, because your whole friends and family are there, you've invited them along, come and watch me box. And like, I can imagine like some friends and family going, what are we doing here? Like, in its own way, was that the most nervous that you think you'll ever be for a fight?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think because it was the first. I'd never done it before. Like, that was, the whole thing was new. Like, now with fighting on Fight Camp and pay-per-view shows and whatever, I've done bits of the process. I've done the warm-up, I've done the fight, the ring walk, whatever it is. There may be some aspect of the whole thing that's new, but for the majority part, I've done it. So I know how to feel, I know what to expect. But that first time when everything's brand new, that's the one that literally has your legs like shaking before the fight, and you're trying to like jump. And when you see like boxers jumping in their corner before they're fighting stuff, I'm watching it going, I know what you're going through. I know what it is. You got them heavy legs. They'll go, but I know what that is. It's so funny. You see all the cues of other boxers doing it and stuff, but it's and I still like when the shows were on. Obviously now with Corona and stuff, it's not. But when the shows were on, I'd still go and watch, and like, because I'm still at the same gym, so they still do white collar shows every few months and stuff. Or again, at least they did. And I still get that nostalgia fit. It's weird that I still, like, I've boxed on pay-per-view shows, I've boxed in on fight camp and stuff, and I still sit there and go, I would like to come back though. Like, just because it's like, it's so like, it's weird because it's where everything started and it's homey. It feels like home almost, that I know everyone there and I know everything there, and the process and how it all works and stuff. And it's just nice to, because you're not only going out when you fight, you don't only go out there to your fans and supporters, but everyone else is, and everyone from the gym is there to watch you, and it's just a good like community vibe of it. So it's just I sit there, like I help people warm up and do little bits and bobs that I can, and there's always a little bit of me that goes, I miss this, like I miss this bit, because you're all in this like a big old changing room together, that everyone from the gym's trained together for however many weeks, and then you've all sparred each other, and you're all getting ready for your fights at the same time. It's a big like, and you go do yours and you come back to the changing room. How do you get on? How's that? Blah, blah. And it's like a big, like I say, community thing. So there is a bit of me that goes, yeah, I kind of miss this, but obviously it's not something I could go back to now. But maybe when I'm 50, 60 or something, I'll just try and pull one out of the bag quickly.
For one night and one night only, a return to the unlicensed scene, the white collar scene. Is that kind of going to be the maybe not the goal, but certainly one of the goals for you to bring a show back to Ipswich? As you mentioned, it's not a hotbed of boxing by any stretch of the imagination. Is that kind of on the bucket list, so to speak, bring a show home?
Yeah, massively. It's something I want to do for a variety of reasons. One, because throughout like my whole of my career, because very early on in my career, like a lot of stuff went wrong in terms of like almost probably the first 6 to 9 months of me, from like when I first turned pro and I was with a completely different promotional company. I was almost like a joke, because I'd announce a fight and then a month later I'd be like, oh, that one's off, I've got to cancel that because of this reason, that reason. And it literally happened at least 5 or 6 times where I'd announce it and then it would be cancelled because of this reason or that reason, or something to do with me, or something to do with the promoter, or the opponent's pulled out. Like there was probably 2 or 3 occasions where the opponent had pulled out either on the day or a day before, and like there was a point where I got to the venue and my promoter was like, yeah, sorry, the opponent's not here. And like all my fans and stuff, they came, and like the show's in Norwich, cursed place to be. And it was just like there was a lot of stuff going on wrong, but in those, like I say, I was almost like a running joke. We're at a point now where I'd announce a fight and people are like, yeah, but it's obviously getting cancelled, so don't worry about that kind of thing. But all my like supporters and everyone stuck with me and was always there to the next show, and always travelled wherever it was, and always came with and stuff. So I feel like I owe that to them at least, to bring it back to Ipswich, where they haven't got to worry about who's going to be the designated driver, or getting a train all the way there, or getting a bus, or whatever it is. They can literally just either walk down the road or get a quick taxi into town, or whatever it is. But it's easy and convenient for everyone that has done all those miles with me to travel up and down the country. So yeah, and it's something we did. So when I was with before Dillian, I was with a different promotional company. We did actually put a show on in Ipswich, which was the first pro boxing show in Ipswich for 20 plus years. So that was a milestone, kind of like a tick for me. That's something I was really proud of. I was just happy to be like, okay, cool. Like I've done a little bit for everyone now. I've brought it back, and there were some good fights on there and some good people on the card. And I just felt like, yeah, okay, like I'm doing my little bit to kind of give back now. Like everyone is closer to home and we can build from there now. So yeah, definitely I want to do something this bigger and on kind of more of a stage. And now I've got obviously Matchroom behind me, and obviously Dillian and stuff as well. There's a lot more options to do with it now, which is going to be good. So I'm looking forward to that. Definitely, it's something I've spoken to Dill about, and I've spoken to Eddie about. We've only lightly ever touched on it because I'm not near the level kind of that I need to be yet for that to happen. But it's definitely something that's always in the back of my mind, at least.
What's the reaction been like from home since you started to appear on these pay-per-view shows, these televised Sky cards? What's that been like?
It's weird because like people now, especially from Ipswich, they view me as like, oh, Fab's on TV and he's with Eddie Hearn, he's with Dillian, and I'm just like, yeah, but I'm still the same. Like, nothing's changed. Like I'm still I still hang around with the same friends. I still go to the same places. I still eat the same like foods and stuff when I'm not in camp. Like I'm still doing all them normal things, but everyone views me a bit differently now as like, oh, I'm that guy that's a bit over there, where I try and, especially people that don't actually know me, and that have only ever are from Ipswich, but have only ever seen me like in the paper or seen me on TV or whatever, they already have that thing of like, oh, I'm like, I think I'm separate from the pack kind of thing. Whereas I'm not. I'm just I feel like I'm still the same. I'm still in the middle with everyone. But it's a weird thing to get my head around of doing like pictures and stuff with people, and people saying they want me to like, they want to send me a glove that I can sign and stuff. I still find all that very strange. Like, it doesn't feel normal to me yet. Like, I'm just eating my food. I'm like in a restaurant eating some food, and someone comes over a bit sheepish, like, "Hi Fab, sorry you don't know me, but can I just grab a picture with you quickly?" And I'm like, of course. I'm like, yeah, of course, mate, no worries. But to me, I stand up in the restaurant and I do like the whole thing, and I stand there and think I must look like a dick because this person here is the only one here that knows who I am. So everyone else in the restaurant's going, "Who's this idiot?" Like, stood up with his fist in the air, and the cameras are going off on him. Like, what's going on? So it does feel a bit odd, but I guess it is just part of it, really. But I'm thankful because everyone in Ipswich is just so supportive, and like, I don't think I've had anyone really say anything particularly negative about me at all. So yeah, everyone's always been kind of really behind me from the start, which is something I'm lucky to have.
Yeah, and being able to do that for somebody, as you say, like, he may be the only person in the restaurant who knows who you are, but to him, it's a big deal. And to be able to do that for somebody, it must be such a great feeling.
Yeah, that is. Not to see, like, again, it sounds stupid, but to see like the joy on people's faces when they take the picture and like, "Oh my God, thanks, mate, really appreciate it." And I'm like, that's cool, mate. Like, it's just normal. But yeah, that is the nice little give back from it, is that you get that kind of, you get to be able to give someone that little bit of joy or that little bit of happiness, which is obviously always a good feeling.
Now, obviously, we've mentioned the fact that you came from kind of the white collar background. You didn't go, you're not Team GB superstar here and Team GB superstar there.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, but you must have studied boxing to some degree, apart from being in the gym, because I watch you fight. I have a keen eye on all of boxing since I was very, very young. You do a lot of things that you wouldn't customarily associate with a white collar fighter, whatever connotations come with that. You have a lot of natural ability, a lot of natural looks that you would see from somebody who is a more seasoned fighter, somebody who's been through the amateur system. So you must have, from my point of view at least, studied or watched or tried to take bits and pieces from fighters around that time.
Yeah, massively. It was again, when I made the decision to be like, okay, this is for you, like, this is what we're doing now, we're gonna do this fully. I also had that conversation with myself that, yeah, but Fab, you're starting at 20, which means most of these guys have at least 10 years on you, and there's a big gap already because they're already had their 50, 60 amateur fights. They're now turning over, or they're just about to, or they're already in the pro ranks with 5 or 6 fights under their belt kind of thing. So I was like, there's a gap there and you need to make that up. And the ways I decided that the best way to do that was sparring. So run around and get sparring with anyone and everyone that I could, just wherever, whenever, just tell me where I need to be, and I'll do it. I'll get there. And the other thing, like you say, was watching a lot of film and trial and error, really. Like, I would literally sit there and watch like a clip of Roy Jones, of Ali, of Lomachenko or whatever, and I'd watch it on like YouTube, and I'd watch it and then go, okay, rewind 10 seconds. Okay, so he puts his foot there. Okay, rewind. Okay, so his hand goes there. Okay, rewind. So the opponent moves there. And then it'd be like a process of trying it. I'd like work it on the bag first, and I'm like, okay, so now I know where to put my feet. Okay, so let's go on the pads now. Okay, it's a bit different on the pads because he moves there and you move there, and you're going to bump if you do that. Okay, so you just need to shift that there. And it was just like a process of trial and error, and then taking it from all of that then into sparring. And I can't tell you how many times like I went through that process. I did something that was like cool on the bag, cool on the pads, worked well. When does sparring? Bang, one in the face. I was like, okay, we're scrapping that. That doesn't work. That doesn't work in a real situation. So it was just a whole lot of trial and error, and I really enjoyed the process of watching and learning. And the thing is, with boxing, you can incrementally watch yourself get better. Like, you can look at yourself from month 1 to month 2, and you be like, I can do that now, and I couldn't do it. Or I can, like, for a long, long time, I struggled with the left hook, and it was something we worked on, and I went from not being able to do it to it being able to at least get it off, and then it being quite a useful punch for me. Then almost turned into like a punch I used quite a bit because I liked, and it was just nice to see that process of, you can be like here at the beginning, but as long as you stick at it and go, you can get to somewhere good with it. And that's where that's where I just really enjoyed boxing as a whole, because that was the same with everything, from your footwork to your head movement to like the shell that I use from times like that. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not great, like absolutely perfect as it is, but it's in a usable place now. Whereas before it was awful. I couldn't ever get it off properly. I'd just getting clocked in the face. So it's just I thoroughly enjoyed that process of just getting that incrementally better at something.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying initially about like the competition with yourself and seeing where you are here, and if I work it, and you are kind of competing against yourself to get something like that done. So I can certainly see that. You mentioned like the shell. That's something that piqued my interest when I've watched you in the past. I'm assuming Floyd may have been the first person that you kind of took that from?
Yeah, the first one ever that I took it from was Floyd, and then I moved from there a bit to like with Sweet Pea and James Toney and things like that, and I took, because they all use it, but it's
different.
It's not still the same. It's still different, and that was something that I learned as well, which was cool to see. Was like, oh yeah, okay, it is the same, but it's not,
and it's when to use it against what opponents.
That was another thing that I learned as well. Again, when I say about doing sparring and just getting clocked in the face, after the first few weeks of using the shell, I was just in it 24/7. I was just shuffling over to the guy in sparring. I was shuffling over in the shell, and I was like, and then just getting clocked. I was like, that's not working.
That's not how Floyd does it.
Yeah, I was like, hang on, he gets away with it. Why can't I? And like, that was the part of the process that I had to learn, that you use it when it's appropriate to use it, and the scenarios what are appropriate to use it in, and the way you use it, and how it can be used in terms of offensive and defensive, and what punch comes off what roll, and what feels normal, and then not to get completely stuck in that, and not to like completely get stuck in an orthodox stance as well. I figured out a kind of medium between using both and stuff. So yeah, it goes back to that just trial and error. But Floyd was the first one I ever saw do it, and then I kind of gravitated more. I found obviously Sweet Pea along the way, and then I gravitated a lot more to kind of James Toney and the way he used it. One, because he was bigger, and I just felt the way he used it was a lot more fluid than Floyd's. Floyd's was quite almost stiff, like, and he was only really ever getting off that counter right hand, whereas James Toney did like dip to the side and get to each side of your body and things, which is something I appreciated a bit more. So that was kind of, I took a bit more from there.
James Toney also started boxing very late as well. Started boxing at 18. Before that, he was like a high school quarterback. He's my favourite fighter. Before he was a high school quarterback at school, blew his knee out, turned to boxing. So he's as good an example as anybody. I mean, you kind of look at the way James Toney used to fight. With Freddie Roach said to me, there's very, very few fighters that he's worked with that are born to fight. James Toney was born to fight.
That was a quote, wasn't it? He said like, some fighters can fight, but only a few are like actually born to fight. And he was talking about James, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he's somebody who, you mentioned sparring and kind of that trial and error of sparring. He would spar himself into shape. No road work, no machines, no nothing. He didn't like to run. He would spar himself into shape, which is why, later on in life, he's taken a lot of shots. But being that, again, defensive wizard who doesn't move around the ring like a Floyd Mayweather or a Pernell Whitaker, as you were saying, he stays in the pocket and it's bending and looking for the counters. And it's not just it's not just hit and not being hit. It's making sure you're getting your shots off as well.
Yeah, it's reacting to it as well, which is like, that's the part of it as well that I think I learned early on. Was when I was doing it, I was doing all of the defensive stuff. I wasn't getting hit. I was moving and stuff, and then I just stand back up, and I was like, yeah, but you've done all that work, you've used all that energy, but you've got nothing for all of your reward. Kind of, you've got no reward. You've got nothing for all that work you just did. And that was something I had to learn as well, was that if you're going to do all that, get something from it. Like, if you're going to slip and move and get all away, react, get a punch off, get your work off. Don't just do all that and then step back and then restart again, because you've wasted it. Like, what for? And again, from watching him and his little dips and just little digs, whatever they are, that was something that I noticed as well, that they weren't all massive. They're just little, like a little one to your sternum, a little one to your rib, and a little one to the top of your head. And then once I've made you think about it more, then I can get off the other stuff.
Yeah, it was just essentially became part of the same motion for him, just to slip and come back to the counter right hand. Slip, bang, slip, bang.
Yeah.
Watch George Benton as well.
George Benton.
Middleweight from back in the day. Actually trained Pernell Whitaker. One of the earliest pioneers of the Philly shell, George Benton. So that's a bit of homework for you. How did a man who was doing recruitment for health and social care and this and that from Ipswich meet Dillian Whyte? How did that happen?
Again, sparring. That was all. It was just through sparring. The opportunity came that he was getting ready for Who was the first one? Robert
Hellenius.
Yes, Hellenius. And I obviously wasn't. And I think at the time he didn't actually know who he was fighting. So he was just getting sparring partners in where he could and stuff. And I got the call and said, "Do you want to come up?" And of course I said, "Yeah." And I drove up to. It was one of the weirder sparring sessions, all kind of things. Because it's funny because when you're on the outside of it as well, you think like I'd only just been in boxing, so I was like, "Shit!" Like Dillian Whyte, like he's up there, he's at the top, like he's one of the big names in the sport. So I'm gonna go to this massive complex. It's gonna be like proper sports sciencey, all this like really big boxing, like mental. I was like, this is gonna be good. And I went there and it literally, the first time I ever sparred him was like a big old open garage, and literally next door was a car garage. And then I guess the car garage owned both parts, but they split it into two and just rented out the other side. And Dill literally just threw some bags and threw a ring in there. And that was where he sparred and that was where he trained. And it was literally just this big old grunge. It was on some weird old industrial estate up in Loughborough. It was just like so strange, like a million miles from where I thought it would be. Like there was oil stains on the floor and it smelt like oil and car parts and stuff. And I was like, is this like real? Like what's... And when I first got there as well, I was like just looking at this big like car garagey shed thing, and I was like, surely this is not it. And like knocked, and he was like, yeah, cool, come in. And I was like, okay, great, whatever. But we sparred, and it developed from there. Really, was that like we sparred a couple of times, and I think he realised that I was keen and wanted to learn, because I'd always like try and just, I didn't want to be a dick and bother him too much, but I wanted to just pick him at little things like, oh, why did you do that? And okay, how do you train? Do you train like that, or do you do things just little bits as and when I could? And I think he noticed early on that I wasn't just like here for the kind of gags of it. I wanted to learn. I wanted to do better and do better. So he just kept me around more and more. And I think we like sparred for pretty much every camp since then. And I think the one that was the big kind of one where we spent a lot of time together was when he was fighting Joseph Parker. And I was there for the full camp pretty much. And he saw that like I just wanted to get better. I just wanted to be better. I wanted to be a part of it, kind of wanted to be in the mix. And like there was things like, he'd like try and say, oh, look, I need you for sparring on this day. And I said, oh, look, I can't, I've got work. And he was like, nah, look, I need you. And I was like, okay, fuck it, I'll like lie about work. There was the point where I was like cancelling shifts, or I was doing favours with someone at work saying, look, can you just do that and I'll do double yours or whatever, just anything, just like, can I go, just any way to go. I'd like I worked in a gym on reception when I was doing all that, and I'd literally go spar Deal in the morning and start like my shift at like 4 p.m. or something, still like half bruised, half cut. I'm on reception going, hi, welcome to the gym. And I've got like a black eye and stuff. And they're going like, who's this freak on the gym floor? Like, what's going on? But I was just doing anything to get there and be in the mix and be around these people, because that was the way that I kind of, I saw it happening, and just progressed over time, that we built up a good relationship, a good friendship and stuff, and looked out for it. And he always, even though he didn't need to in any way, because I was signed to someone else, I was in my contract and whatever, he still checked on me, and he was still like, oh, so how's your training going? Who else are you sparring? And then whenever I'd have fights and stuff, he'd like call me or message me after and say, so how'd you get on? How did that fight go for you? And I found that a bit like, not weird, but like good that someone at that higher level still has an interest in me when I'm no attachment to him in any way. I'm not signed to him. There was no conversation ever of me signing with him or anything like that. He was just partly invested in me and wanted to see me do well, and I appreciated that from him. And I think that's then where our relationship grew from there. And then the opportunity came where I was no longer in a management contract anymore, and I was free. And I called him and I just said, because I didn't even know, I think at that point he only had Richard. So I wasn't really like aware that he was signing fighters at all. I just called him because we'd like built a good friendship, and I realised that he was been in the game a while, knew a lot of people, knew kind of the ropes and stuff.
One of the more underestimated boxing minds, I think, in British boxing, Dillian Whyte. Anyway,
yeah, definitely. And I called him just to say, like, look, I'm out of my contract now. Do you know any managers, or like, can you suggest to me some managers and stuff that would be good? Because I've had a bad rap with 2 so far. So I just I want my third one to be the right one. And we was talking about some names and stuff and some people, and I'll never forget it. It was a weird thing. Like, we were talking normally, flowing, and then he was just like, actually, wait, hold there. And then just hung up on me, and I was like, oh, okay, that's that done. He must be busy or something. He's got something going on. And then he hung up on me for like 5 minutes or so went by. The phone went again. I answered, and he was like, yeah, forget everything we just said. Like, fuck all that. Just come with me. I'll sign you. I'll look after you, and we'll do it. And we'll do it that way. And I'll look after you. Make sure you get treated right. Make sure you do everything that you like. You're on the right path for everything, and I'll look after you, basically. And true to his word, to this day, everything's gone 100% smoothly. There's no discrepancies. There's nothing bad that's ever happened between us. He's just a good, honest guy that wants to see kind of younger people do well and do better. Because he went through those kind of them bad times with bad promoters and having to sell tickets on the door, and just that hard grind of them people that come from them smaller hall shows and things where I was at before I signed with him.
Yeah, and you can see that. I mean, you mentioned Richard Riakporhe, but obviously with John Harding and various other guys who he's kind of tried to give leg ups to. I know Isaac Chamberlain was never with him, but they trained out at the same gym. He used to spar with him a lot. Obviously, as you mentioned, Dillian coming from that background, obviously has seen that in you. How did your life change after that? After that conversation when he called you back, how different has your life been since then?
Everything just went from like, I don't know, like level. I was probably at about level 2 or 3 maybe, and then went straight to like level 10 out of nowhere. So I drove up to where he was training in Loughborough, and we signed the papers and stuff, met everyone. Literally 20 minutes later, I was in the car with my team on the way home. I get a call from Sky straight away saying, just heard you signed a deal. We want to do an interview with you. I was like, shit, it's happening. Like, everything's going. What's going on? And it did like a quick phone one with them. And my family and stuff was on holiday at the time. So I'm known in my family for not being very like forthcoming with stuff. I keep a lot of stuff to myself and quiet about everything, probably until like the absolute last moment, until I tell everyone. So like when I signed with Deal, when I first turned pro, all them big kind of moments in my life, I keep everything right to me until either it's just happened or it's now about. I don't know. It's a weird thing, and my mum, my dad, and everyone, they hate it because they always like, we never know what's going on with you. But I don't know. I just don't like to. I don't like to kind of give it too early, because I think the worst thing for me would be like announcing something, and then it probably stems from some
those fights.
Yeah, it probably stems from that I've done it so many times where I've like really early on, and then it's gone wrong. So I've been like, okay, nah, let's do this a different way now. So yeah, so for a long time, like I didn't tell anyone anything. And I was just in my room prepping. Like, it was a couple of days later. And I still hadn't told anyone in my family. My family was on holiday, actually. They were somewhere else. But I hadn't told anyone. The only people that knew that I just signed with Deal was obviously me, him, and my team. And I was getting my bag ready, probably about 6 p.m, something like that. And to go to the gym. My phone was on my bed. And I walked past, and it flashed up, and it just said, like, one of those like normal banner kind of headlines that you get for having like the Sky app on your thing. It says Fabio Wardley signs with Dillian Whyte, heavyweight prospect, blah blah blah. And I was like, shit, like I haven't even told anyone. So then and then I called Dill panicking. I was like, is that supposed to be out now? Is this how it goes? He was like, yeah, just like relax, man. Everything's good. Everything's like, I was just that new kid to it. Or I was like, I don't know if you know, but like Sky put it out. Were they supposed to? Is that what they're supposed to do? Is that how it goes? He was like, just be cool, like everything's good, like yeah, it's fine, don't worry, man, just like put it out, release it, everything's good to go. So then I had to call my family and be like, look, it's already on Sky, sorry I didn't tell you, but yeah, I've signed with Dillian Whyte, I'll see you when you get back from your holiday, bye.
They're like, doing what you're doing.
They're like, what's going on? So yeah, that was how the whole process of it all went. To be fair, it was quite a surreal experience. And then just from then, like those last, what was it, 2018? It would have been 2018.
Yeah,
the back end, yeah, would have been the big back end of 2018. That was when that kind of from August, September onwards of 2018 was just a mental time for me because I quit my job at the gym. So I decided I was all in now. No actual job. I was just all in on boxing. That was at the time, the same time where I got the first call to go spar with Usyk. So that felt mental as well. Got back from that. I spoke to Dill, signed with him. That was mental. Then a month later, I'm fighting on the Chisora, White Chisora 2 bill at the O2. That was mental. So like back to back to back, I just had like massive like boxing events in my life where I was like, okay, we're going now. Like we're going to that kind of higher level. So it was a mental few months for me, but like it was unreal. Just the best thing.
Talk to me about sparring Usyk. Obviously, usually I'm joined with another heavyweight, Mr. Dave Allen, who's currently over there being pinged around the ring by Usyk. Sorry, Dave, your words, not mine. What's that whole experience like? Usyk to me is kind of what, like, I don't know, he's almost like a Sphinx-like character. You kind of see him and he's very kind of, he has that special something. He's a very interesting fella. What's camp like when you're in there with him?
Both times I've been very different. They've all been great. Like Usyk and his team and everyone there is lovely. Like they're all really nice people, really accommodating, really polite, always look after you and whatever you need and that. But like the first time I went was mental because obviously that was the first time I'd ever gone for like a proper sparring camp, and that was the first time I'd ever left the country for a sparring camp as well. So I didn't know the process either. I didn't know if you take someone with you go on your own, whatever. I just thought, whatever, I'll just go on my own and I'll see how it goes from there. I'll just take it for what it is, kind of thing. So I get on the plane and stuff. I get some Ukrainian guy meet me at the other end. Doesn't speak a lick of English, but he has a sign with my name on it. And I like walk over to him. I'm like, "That's me." He's like, "You?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Come." I'm like, all right. Follow him into some like dingy car park where he puts me in the back of like a van, like an actual van. Again, this is the thing that I say with like boxing, that on the outside you think it's all like, I think Oleksandr Usyk, like Super Series winner, like top guy, like this is going to be massive, like I'm going to be almost like a limo or something will come and grab me and blah blah blah, and it's not. It's like, it's weird that once you're in it, it's just everything's very like normal and almost basic line. So I jumped in the van and there was a point where I was like, this could go very wrong. Like, I've just walked up to a random guy in Ukraine, put my thumb up to him, he stuck me in a van, and now we're off down the road. I don't know where I'm going or what's going on. But we got to the hotel. The hotel was a lovely hotel, really nice. And then he gave me a bit of cash to like get food and stuff with. And that was it. I just waited in my room for a call. Got a call either later that night or in the morning saying you'll be sparring the next day. And then went to spar and met Usyk and the team and stuff, and just went from there with it. And just kind of, again, just one of those things where you just take it in your stride. You just have to kind of run with it and almost pretend like you know what you're doing, even though I haven't got a clue. But I was just like, did my bit and waited, sparred, kind of hoped I did well. I was ill actually the first time I went, but I didn't want to say no. I was like, I had like a cold or something, and because I have asthma, it like messes my chest up badly. So the first spar I did was terrible. Like I could barely breathe, but I wanted to do it and I wanted to get through it. So I did, and then as it progressed, I got like the cold wore off and I got better and better and stuff, and it was good. So yeah, both times I went, I had a great time.
Were you sparring out in the middle of nowhere in the Olympic Institute? Because I know he does some of his camps there, and Lomachenko does it as well. Like where they have the old, where it's in the middle of nowhere and it looks like somewhere from the 70s.
Yeah.
Is that where it was?
Yeah. So the first time I went was a different place. It wasn't the Olympic place, but it was just as old and like dingy, and they had two bears, which baffled me as well. So again, like the first or second time, the only saving grace for me there was that Malik Scott was there, and obviously he was American, he was nice, spoke English and whatever, so he was someone I could kind of cling to and just get a bit of kind of stability with in this foreign land where no one speaks the language and whatever.
He speaks enough for a lot of people.
Yeah. So me and him were sat in the back of the van, and then we went to the place and we got out of the van. We were like, as we literally got out of the van, to the left there's two massive cages, literally no far than 5-10 yards away, of two bears. And like I looked at Malik and like looked at the bears and I was like, are you seeing like what I'm seeing? And he was like, yeah, what the fuck? And then we spoke to the driver. I was like, bears, like why bears? He was like, just bears.
Why not?
Oh, okay. No worries, mate. No worries. Just take me where I need to go. I don't know what's going on here. This place is mental. But yeah, it was a great time. So I had real good fun over there. And the first time was at like a different venue. The second time I went to the Olympic place. I didn't stay there because I think that's where Dave's actually staying now. He's on the Olympic thing. When I was there, I stayed at a hotel that was up the road, and then they drove me to the Olympic place. But yeah, the Olympic place is nice. It's like old, proper old. It's almost like if you remember doing PE as a kid. That's how it feels. It feels like going to your PE class as a kid because it's all like really old wooden and all of that, and everything's a bit like dingy and whatever. That's how it was. But again, it was really good, and it was cool to like walk around. There's just like different type of Olympian people walking around and stuff. Like Usyk has a really good friend in the wrestling team who sometimes comes in and watches his spars, and like they laugh and joke and mess around before and after. And after a while, like I'd been like joking and laughing with the geezer, and he just bolts through the door. He's a massive guy as well, like a massive Eastern European wrestler, and he comes through in his like not leotard but whatever it is, the wrestling outfit that they wear. He just bowls through the door and points at me really aggressively from the other side of the room. I'm like, what? And like jokingly, I'm like, yeah, come then, like come on then, like messing around. He like runs over, grabs me, and we're like play wrestling, and I have never felt more inferior in my entire life. Like we was on like some big mats and stuff, so it was cool and stuff, but he literally like grabbed me, spun me, and I was doing my best to like hold on to an arm or something, but like he literally moved me around like I was a toddler, like the way he knew how to do it. And it was hilarious, to be fair, and everyone was laughing and joking and stuff, but it's just credit to like how they are, like everyone's just so relaxed and fun and kind of happy-go-lucky with it all, that it's a great camp to be a part of, and I'm sure Dave's having a great time, to be honest.
You know, you've got kind of a running theme throughout this interview or this chat, whatever you want to call it, is that, you know, you've taken yourself out of your comfort zone several times before. I mean, the fact that you started in Ipswich already kind of puts you behind the eight ball. No Team GB stuff. Again, that's a lot of people would look upon that as a negative. But, you know, if you'd gone through Team GB is a fantastic setup, but some people come out of there very expectant. They're a bit pampered. They wouldn't necessarily want to go take themselves off to sparring here, there and everywhere on a moment's notice. Yeah. Do you think in a way that's going to benefit you in a lot of ways, kind of not having that stuff, having to really put yourself out there and really take yourself out of your comfort zone? Is that a good thing? Yeah,
massively, because I think that I've built like a resistance, kind of like calluses to it, of the nervousness of the whole event, because boxing as a whole can just be a nervy event. You can be some fighters can get themselves really worked up before fights, or in the anticipation in camp building up, or before a big sparring session or whatever. You can work yourself up a lot, and I think that takes a lot of energy from you. So me putting myself in them situations where I always say I just put the blinders on and you just go forward. Like no matter, like you can worry about this and worry about that, just go forward, just move, just go to the session, just do the sparring, like do the whatever it is, just do it, just get there. And I think that's what's helped me massively in it, because now I'm at a point where I'm like, I've done all those things. I've done sparring on my own in like Ukraine, or I've gone to Miami for a month on my own to spar with Hergovich, or I've fought on a pay-per-view show in front of however many people. I've done it now, and I've done it all without someone cuddling me or someone holding my hand. I've just gone like, fuck it, I'll just go. And I think that now gives you that confidence in yourself, that because if you do it and you've been cuddled along the way, if you then have to do it without that, then you're a bit like, oh, I need that little crutch, I need that little like kind of helping hand thing. Whereas I've just done it and just gone, that I feel quite comfortable now in pretty much any situation that I might be in. So it's I see it as a massive blessing, definitely.
How does Usyk Chisora go?
I think Usyk on points would be my bet. Yeah, it is, to be fair, it's difficult, and I think it's a lot closer than maybe a lot of people are judging currently. I do give Derek a lot more kind of credit in that fight than maybe the kind of general public are giving him, but I would definitely pick Usyk in that. And yeah, I think points. I don't think you're stopping Derek. I think he's at a point now with his conditioning where he can just go and go and go. And you saw that with with Dillian Whyte and the other fights that he's been in, that he can just go through he can just push and push and push. And he's always been known to be that kind of guy. And as stupid as it may sound, probably if you know boxing and if you know Derek a bit, he'll be missing probably about 25% by not having fans as well, by not having the crowd there to sing his song and G him up and get him ready will take a little bit from him. He won't want to admit that, and he won't probably want to say it out loud, but that will take something, because he is one of those fighters that does live off the crowd. He's one of those ones that does, that's his 12th man on the pitch kind of thing. That's the one to get him that extra mile. So without that, I think he will not struggle at all, but I think he will feel the difference of not having that there to G him when he's maybe a bit more tired or whatever. And I think for Usyk, I don't think that matters too much to him. I don't think that will faze him at all. He's done all sorts.
Yeah, it kind of goes back. I've had this conversation with Luke Campbell, like other really established Olympians or amateurs with the background. He said, well, sometimes I'll go fight in Kazakhstan and there'll be 30 people there, or I'll go and fight in the middle of nowhere and there'll be nobody there. Whereas, as you say, Usyk, while obviously has boxed at a sold-out O2 or has boxed at a sold-out Manchester, not boxed at O2 yet, then he's kind of used to all of that stuff and he really can prepare for any eventuality. Now, one thing that you had to prepare for, which nobody had really prepared for properly, was fight camp. How was that for you? Again, sort of from this conversation that we've had, it kind of looks from the outside that you would just approach that as just another thing. Is that what it was like?
Literally was. It was literally just another thing. Just go through it, take it for what it is. The probably more comfortable thing with that, it was that everyone was new to that, and literally everyone from the commentators, from Eddie to the fighters to even the security people, like just everyone was a bit like, what do we do here? Like, how's this all working? Like, what's the process? What's the rules? So that was probably a bit more comforting out of the whole thing, that everyone was in the same kind of boat. But again, it was just take it as it comes. And to be honest, it was a really enjoyable event. Like, it was really like, it felt almost homey. Like everyone was just in the bubble together, and you'd see people up and down the hallways, and you'd sit in the garden with some people, and I got to like sit and chat to some other boxers, some other coaches and stuff, and actually like have normal conversations. Not like you say when you do like the media things, this, how was your camp, have you trained hard, are you gonna win, blah blah blah, and it's like that same old stuff. Whereas like the day's gone or whatever, we've all done our bits, and then everyone's just chilling in the garden for a bit, getting a bit of sun, and we're just laughing and joking and like pissing around with like Dave Coldwell and Jordan Gill and just messing around and just but having a laugh, and it's all a bit more normal and stuff, and you almost kind of forget like what you're there for. You just think you're just having a chill out and a laugh and a joke with some mates around. So it was a good event. It was nice to be a part of. It was definitely something I'm going to look back on in years and say, nah, that was real good fun. And I think you can kind of get that from the vibe, and like all the content that came out was quite just fun. It was just like funny and just messing around, and just because there is a lot of spare time, there's a lot of nothing time, like it's difficult to kind of fill your gap. So it was like there was just a lot of just pissing about really and just having some fun, and it was nice, and I enjoyed it. And then obviously to get to actual fight camp was mental. Like it's weird because you went from so long of like seeing it slowly being built, seeing all the pictures and stuff, but then you got there and I literally stood there kind of in awe for about 5 minutes. Like, this is like, to be fair to him, Eddie done like a real good job with it. Like the way it was all set up and everything was great. It was a proper like spectacle. So yeah, I loved it. I really enjoyed it.
You upset Simon Vallily though, didn't you?
I set him off a bit, didn't I? Yeah, that was like it went like, well, obviously it went so much better than actually planned, because that's not how I planned for it to go. It was just a joke. Like, I was just, if anyone actually knows me, and like people got to know kind of in fight camp and along those few days, that I'm just a dick. Like, I'll take the piss out of me. I'll take the piss out of everyone. I'll make myself look stupid. Like, I think like everyone quite enjoyed like me and my team, because me and my two coaches, we are just like the three musketeers in terms of we're walking to like a really serious press conference and I'll trip him up so he falls over and things like that. Like we just
ask
like
him about five guys in the corner.
Yeah, like little things like that. But that just embodies kind of how we are as a whole and how I always want my team to be. I don't always want us to take everything too serious. I don't want us to ever get lost in it and think, oh no, we have to be blah 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 and do whatever. I just want us to be ourselves and be normal. And that's, if we was at the gym, like if you filmed our whole camp at the gym, that's all you'd see was us just pissing about and taking the piss out of each other and laughing and joking. And the mustache thing, that's all that was. That was just, again, like I bought it a few weeks in advance. They sent me it, and I took it out of the package and I looked at it and I was like, are you really, are you about to do this, Fab? Is this what you're about to do? Is it? So I was in my room before the press conference. I put it on, and I was literally I was in the mirror laughing at myself for about 10 minutes, just going like, is this? I looked so stupid. And in the press conference as well, I can't stop playing with it. I don't know why, but I really
it's
got
really
into this.
Tempting, isn't
I got
it?
into this really kind of evil villain kind of thing I was doing. And so yeah, I put it on, and my coach come into my room. He immediately was breaking down and laughing. He was going, "Are you is this what you're doing? Is it brilliant or whatever?" But it worked so well because of Corona, because I got to wear the mask. So no one knew. I just wore my normal mask and I was acting normal with everyone. They were saying, Fab, come this way, do this, sit there. I was going, yep, cool, no worries, yep. Sat in my seat, and you hear the countdown from the Sky Matchroom being saying we're going live in 3, 4, 2, 1, whatever. And as it goes, I just got to take it off slowly. And Eddie and obviously Simon can't initially see, but what they see is all the Sky people and all the Matchroom people and all their faces be like, what are you up to? What's going on? And then I turn to look at Simon and Eddie, and Eddie's like, are you alright? And then Simon's absolutely fuming immediately, and I'm like, here we go. So yeah, it was just an off the cuff kind of joke thing. I didn't even mean it really to set him off. I was just doing it just to be funny. If he hadn't have gone so mental, I'd have probably taken it off after about a minute. I'd have probably gone, haha, that was funny, taken it off and cracked on like normal. But he was going nuts about it, and I was like, well, I'm gonna
left me no choice now.
I'm gonna have to double down on this then, mate. Sorry. So yeah, I went in a bit on that, and we went back and forth and stuff, and it was good. It was a good bit of fun. Made the papers and whatever, and created a bit of interest. So yeah, it just spiced it up a bit, but it worked a lot better than I actually planned for it to.
Fabio Wardley, accidental master of the mind games.
Yeah,
apparently.
Literally.
Great performance though. Obviously, we've touched upon it throughout this of extensive amateur background, Team GB this, Team GB that. Simon Vallily came through a good amateur setup. He's very well known to a lot of people in boxing. You, on the other hand, very fresh in the game, don't have all of that with you. On paper, I think at the time, you were 18-1 on or something like that. You were a big favourite going into the fight. And it actually told on fight night. I mean, talk to us a little bit about your performance on fight night.
It was. I wanted to show. I used that as an opportunity to show that I could box because I wanted to. Because obviously the way it was being pitted was a white collar guy versus a decorated amateur.
Exactly.
So the kind of negative connotations that go with being a white collar is scrappy. They're a slugger, maybe just one big punch or whatever. So I wanted to take that and I went back to that kind of ego and that competition thing. I was like, okay, take your ABA guy, you take your decorated amateur, your guy that's done this. He's supposed to be the kind of epitome of clean boxing, blah, blah, blah. And I will outbox him. I will ping him with a jab and I'll poke him and move him and he'll barely touch me. And I'll show you that I can do that. And not only me, but other white collars can do that. And just because you come from white collar doesn't mean all the things you're already attaching to it. And that's how I took it. So for 2 rounds, that was what I did. And again, it sounds a bit arrogant, but I barely got out of second gear. I was chilling. I was just relaxed. I was just playing, poking the jab, prodding a few things, saw a few gaps, let a few combos off, then got back to boxing, then got back to poking and prodding and jabbing and moving and just a little bit frustrating him. And that was all I wanted to do for a bit was just, and to be honest, if you'd asked me if my picture perfect, I probably wanted to go about 5. I wanted to do that for a bit longer, just to show that there's more and that I can get out of second gear. Because again, that's not something that everyone's got to see yet. Is me in any of my fights out of second gear. Really, you've not seen me really plant my feet and throw massive shots. You've not seen me let go of massive combinations or get into a proper tear up and things like that. So I do want to show those things, but it's just it didn't happen on that night, and I'd never grumble at an early stoppage. Like, you don't get paid for overtime like everyone says. So I was perfectly fine with it. But yeah, I pinged the move for 2 rounds, and then I decided. I don't know if the camera caught it or the little mic, because they mic'd up my corner. But I said to my coach, I was like, I know where the gaps are now. Like, I know what to do. And if I wasn't actually planning on doing it in the third, I was going to do it in the fourth, because I was going to step it up in the third and really wear him, and then I was going to go in the fourth. And you see, if you watch it, you see that from the beginning of the third round that my jabs are a lot faster, they're a lot sharper, and they're more together. Like, I'm pinging 2 and 3. And then 2 and 3 again, and then like I'm putting my foot on the gas just that bit more. And then it got to a point where I was backed up into the corner, which is somewhere I feel like completely comfortable. I wasn't worried about being there at all. I was doing what I'd always done in like sparring and training, where I'd sit back into the shell, but I'd cover your vision just by prodding you. Not even like, again, like we go back to the James Toney thing, not hard, not putting everything into it, just annoying you, just in your eyes, just so you can't see. Just so you don't know exactly what I'm about to do next. And just the normal catch, counter, and the roll, and just to come up with a left hook and catch him while he was trying to throw his at me. And then what you see from that is someone who's supposed to be that clean ABA guy that has forgot that you need to cover yourself when you're throwing your shot. Like, we threw the exact same punch. The only difference was I remembered the basics of keeping my hand there to my face when I throw mine. And he forgot that, and he
was a little bit shorter, a little bit tighter.
Yeah, and mine was just a little bit that cleaner and a little bit faster, and got to the button a bit before his, but his glove wasn't there to cover his face, and then just followed in with the finish.
Yeah, and the finish was very, very impressive. I mean, obviously to that point, and we'd spoken briefly before the fight about kind of how you were going to go about it, and that was obviously the way that it transpired. But I think what was most impressive to me, and certainly a lot of other people who were watching, was how calm you were with the finish. You picked your shots well. You didn't go head hunting. You know, forgive me for saying it, Mr. Wilder, but sometimes some other heavyweights can see red mist descends and red flag to
just
a ball,
go
red
mental.
flag to a ball. You didn't do that, and obviously that had me and a lot of other people after the fight kind of wondering where the ceiling was for this Ipswich guy with no amateur background. What's the goal for you? Obviously, I speak to every fighter, and every fighter says the same thing: world champion.
Yeah, of course, it's world champion. Like, I made that decision early on that if I'm in, I'm in. Like, I'm not doing it half-hearted. I'm here to get to the top and be to that higher level, and I'm not delusional. I understand there's still a lot to go, and there's a lot of time and still gaps to make up and stuff. But that's ultimately the end goal, and that's where I want to be. Like, I want to be mentioned in them top names and stuff. And it's great, again, that I've got someone like Dill that I can see is at that higher level, that higher point, that I can see where kind of like the mountaintop is. I'm still at the bottom. I'm still not up there. But at least I can see it, and I know the steps how to get there, and I know the process and things. So yeah, that's the goal ultimately. That's the only outcome.
Well, before we wrap things up, obviously we've spoken about Dillian throughout this. The fact that you're not only manager and fighter, but you have a close relationship as well. You have a friendship. What was it like for you seeing him stopped by Oleksandr Povetkin?
Hurt. Yeah, it was a weird thing. It like hurt me. It felt like a dream almost, and I was watching it in a public place as well, with a bunch of the people from my boxing gym as well, and yeah, it just felt like everything went slow mo, and so like almost like when you're in a ring, it felt like everything just disappeared for those seconds while he was on the ground, and I was like, shit, like this is like not good, like, because especially when you're in boxing, you know the way people fall as well. You know when they fall in certain ways that okay, just a flash knockdown, okay, a little bit heavy but legs are still solid, or you can see in the difference of knockdowns of when they just go, and that was one of the ones where it's just gone completely until he hit the floor again. That kind of rebooted him, but it was painful for me to watch as well. And again, another problem with it was, like I said, I was in a public place, so then because everyone there knows I'm attached to him, everyone looks to me like I've got the answers as to what's just gone on, and I'm like, guys, like I'm watching it the same as you, like I've got nothing for you. And it was just it was the shock of obviously the knockdown as well, but he was in so like such control of the fight that he'd had them 2 previous knockdowns of Povetkin. He looked like he was going to wrap it up in the next 2 or 3, and then for that to just seemingly come out of nowhere was like, okay, what's going on here? The script has been flipped, like, kind of thing. So Yeah, it was hard to watch. Hard to see him on the floor, and obviously hard to see like Aspiration helping him up and getting him up and stuff. But yeah, it was a difficult one. But like I say, I know what he's like as a true fighter, true warrior. So he'll be back stronger.
That's kind of where I was going to come on to, really, like the quick turnaround between the first fight and the second fight. Was that any surprise to you that he's desperate to get back on the horse so quickly?
No, not from someone that knows him, not at all. Like, in a lot of cases, it's probably not advisable from a medical standpoint, from just a general boxing standpoint. Just probably not the most, like, the best course of action. But when you know like deal with like how he is, he's not letting that go away. Like, he's not letting someone tell him take 6 months off. He's not letting someone tell him take that time, maybe have a warm up before he'll tell you all to shut up and just make the fight and get it done. So I knew that as soon as that happened, that there was going to be no other possibility of different kind of outcome of how this was going to go. He was always going to jump immediately back into it, and we'll see how that plays out for him eventually.
And it's kind of what we've said about you and what you've done in your career is kind of making you the fighter that you are now. And it's a similar thing for Dillian Whyte. What he's, that kind of that ignorance and that pig-headedness that a lot of people need to get to that top level is ultimately what's kind of forced him into this rematch so soon.
Yeah, that is the thing. Like, fighters need that in them. You need to be so confident in yourself that even if, and it may always not be the most advisable, it might not always be kind of the best course of action, but you need to have that confidence in yourself to be like, regardless of what everyone else is saying, I can do it. Because there are times where it works out fine. Like when I first turned pro, there was a lot of people in the beginning saying like, what are you doing? Like, what's going on? Like, you don't turn pro. And I was like, no, I can do this. I can go. And if you listen to them people, then sometimes it can throw you a bit. If you let them get into your head, it can put you off. Don't get me wrong, sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, but that's just, the game's the game. That's the way you roll the dice at the end of the day. You live by the sword, you die by the sword.
The game is the game. We like the wire references on the Boxing Social podcast. Fabio Wardley been doing his research. Before I let you go, I can't believe that we've been in here for over an hour already. Time flies when you're having fun. Only be right to ask you about what's next for you. Now, I know that you've got some dates and some opponents.
That's what's next.
Yeah, not retirement yet. Didn't just do a whole hour interview for you to go and retire next week. What's next for you? Obviously, I know that there's opponents and dates flying around. We've got some cards announced now. What's going on? Yeah,
I'll be out again definitely before the end of the year. Date is not too far away, a couple of months, and then the opponent is, that's in the air a bit. That's more of a difficult one to kind of pin down. It's just, we've got like offers out there and things to people. We're just waiting for responses, seeing what people say and stuff. But I'm ready to go. So I leave that side to the team. I say, look, I'm ready. So just set me in and I'm good to go, kind of thing. So they'll do all that, and they just let me know and go, by the way, you're fighting this person. Cool, no worries, I'm good. So yeah, that's the plan. Stay busy, stay active. One more before the end of the year. Enjoy Christmas as much as you can with old Rona flying around, and then back to it next year.
We get a day off, don't we, on Christmas Day? Boris was saying, no rule of 6 on
something
Christmas
like
that. Who knows?
We'll see.
Okay, Fabio Wardley, real pleasure to do our first proper interview outside of all of the mundanity that follows around Fight Week. But been a real pleasure to have you in here and listen to your story so far. I hope that the next period of your career is as interesting and as fruitful as the start of it has been. But congratulations on getting to where you are even now, because it's fantastic. Because nobody from Ipswich ever does anything. So thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social. Yeah, I'm gonna have to be careful if you do bring a show back there. Shout out Norwich. Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social, and I'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you very much.